Magnetism by Souldin. Chapter 2 Bunny Block. By the time Fluttershy was able to walk across the small bridge that led her to the earthly-toned home, the daytime had passed and the afternoon was well on its way, with having been little more than a couple of hours since the fillies and colts had left school and made their way to their homes, or, instead, choosing to hang out with their friends. As for what the mid-afternoon was like, it was like a typical spring afternoon in Ponyville, but the yellow pony was having difficulty admiring it as she normally would. For Fluttershy was constantly minding where she was placing her hooves, as she walked side by side, literally side by side, with Rainbow Dash, who in turn was constantly minding her pace. Due to the ancient and mystical bracelets constantly attached to the two pegasus hooves, Fluttershy and Rainbow Dash were forced to be as close as they can, even while moving. Fluttershy kept bumping her left legs into Rainbow Dash's right, causing them to trip and stumble. Rainbow had a different problem, though. She was far too coordinated to place her legs in front of her friends. Rather, she struggled with matching her jog-like stride of a pace with Fluttershy's leisurely walk. On top of their individual problems, both of them would make the mistake of walking into one another when turning corners, and by the time the feathered duo had reached the homely earth-toned cottage, the bracelets had activated more than a couple of times. As the two mares neared their home, just now ascending the slight hill, Rainbow Dash looked to and fro and decided to use her spotting of various animals in the garden as a subject of conversation.
Geez, Fluttershy, where do you keep all these guys? Your house is too small for this many animals.
Oh, well, only a few of the animals live here with me.
Fluttershy explained as she waved to some of the animals.
Many of them come from other areas of Ponyville, or the Everfree Forest to hang out here.
Rainbow nodded her head, but did not speak again until the two had just arrived outside the front door.
Some of them come from the Everfree Forest, huh? Are you sure that's safe? I mean, I know your special talent is with the animals and all, but...
Don't worry, a lot of the animals seem to come here just to relax and play.
Fluttershy replied as she pushed the door open, the two Pegasi now making their way into the house.
I assure you that there is not a single animal here who will try to harm you.
Then a carrot hit Rainbow Dash's head. Rainbow Dash winced from the impact, raising a hoof to her face as Fluttershy immediately asked,
"Oh my, are you okay?"
Rainbow was quick to brush away the aiding hoof.
Fluttershy! It was a carrot. Of course I'm okay, but...
She turned her head around to the small rabbit who was bouncing up towards them.
Why'd you throw that at me, you little brat?
Fluttershy also turned her attention to the frowning bunny rabbit.
Now, Angel Bunny, you know you shouldn't throw things at our friends, or any pony for that matter.
The animal of white let this comment pass with no attention paid to it. Instead, he held up a pocket watch and tapped on one of the hours. The two ponies' expressions were critical in nature, and it took a few seconds of Angel tapping the same time on the watch with a rising rage until Fluttershy both realized what her pet meant and also remembered the forgotten detail.
I'm sorry, Angel. I said I would be back sooner than this, and I didn't realize it was gone for so long.
Fluttershy apologized with the sweetest tone she could muster, her body bent down for her face to be level with Angel's.
You must have been worried.
Angel turned his head away, with his scowl still present. His arms crossed body language would have suggested he was not worried, but in fact he was. As a manly creature such as himself, he could not let such insecurities be known, so he kept facing away from Fluttershy, his ears receiving each apologetic word that came from his owner.
And then I bumped into Rainbow Dash, and we went to Twilight's, and
Upon mentioning one name, though, Angel did react. React in how he had normally just now realized that there was in fact another pony by Fluttershy's side. Angel turned around to see the show-off pony beside Fluttershy, which was by itself nothing unusual, but something was off. When he realized what was off about the pony, he scowled even more, pointing to the two mares, cupped his paws together, and then separated them. Fluttershy noticed Angel's charades, his primary form of communication.
You want me and Rainbow Dash to get you a cup of water?
Angel raised a brow to this, but did not question it entirely. He could see where the idea of a cup came from, so he repeated his actions, but placing his paws flat against one another.
You want us to close the door and walk away from it?
Fluttershy asked, her rainbow-maned friend proceeding with the action of closing the door before the white animal could confirm this as incorrect with a shake of his head.
Oh, you want to play tag, don't you?
Rainbow Dash joined in the game of charades with a childlike enthusiasm, though Angel's response of a palm was a clear sign that she wasn't much better at the game than Fluttershy. Words not being an option for the rabbit could take, and charades being constantly misinterpreted by the two ponies, he chose action, his favorite option anyway. The short and diminutive creature hopped up, placing his paws on both the ponies, and with surprising strength, pried the two apart.
Oh, you were saying me and Rainbow Dash were too close together and you want to keep us separate.
Fluttershy's answer was met with a cheerful nod from the bunny, who continued to keep the two pegasi apart. Rainbow Dash was a little dumbfounded at the unexpected might of the bunny rabbit, but soon her brain ticked again when she remembered a rather crucial fact.
Wait! Don't separate us!
Angel furrowed his brow into a glare, demanding an answer he did not receive. What he did receive was a trip into the air, and Rainbow Dash utilized her cyan wing closest to the rabbit to fling him into the air. While Angel flipped into the air, Rainbow Dash hugged Fluttershy, eliciting a startling flush from the mare at the unintentional display of affection. It also prevented the bracelets and magnetic powers from activating milliseconds before they were going to. Angel fell back down shortly afterwards, bouncing against Fluttershy's back. Angel was able to fall off a set back from the landing impact, but a canary yellow wing shot out, catching him mid-tumble.
Are you okay, Angel Bunny?
The shaky bunny was placed atop Fluttershy's back, where he regained his balance and nodded as soon as he could. Then he turned his head slowly, in a horror movie kind of way, towards Rainbow Dash.
What? Hey! Stop looking at me like that, punk!
Rainbow Dash snapped back.
Oh, yes. Please stop, Angel. She didn't mean to hurt you when she tossed you into the air. I can explain if you want me to.
Fluttershy tried to meet eye to eye with her disgruntled pet, but could only do so once he had hopped off of her back and landed in front of her.
You see, our friend Twilight was studying a lot of objects, and one of them was a pair of bracelets.
At the mention of the bracelets, Fluttershy held up her garmented hoof for the rabbit to see that of which he spoke of.
Rainbow Dash tried one of them on and everything was fine, but when I tried the other bracelet, they turned out to be magical. Now, me and Rainbow Dash are inseparable.
Angel's raised eye was either a sign of disbelief or a lack of understanding, or possibly both.
These two hickeys have turned me and Fluttershy into magnets.
Rainbow Dash said with a sigh. Angel Bunny was not familiar to a sorcerer, and as such his understanding of magic was little. Only that it was best to avoid it. It was due to this minute understanding of magic that he thought first of non-magical explanations, and, in this case, he jumped to the conclusion that his trusting owner had been tricked. Yes, it was beginning to make sense. At least, more sense than two ponies becoming magnetic, something he would have to see in order to believe. The cyan Pegasus, he could not be bothered to remember her name, attached those bracelets to herself and his owner, and then conjured a tale about them becoming magnets. When asked for an explanation, she said magic. It seemed to be the all and end all of any explanation. This was of course all part of her devious plot to get free meals, plenty of naps, and to boss his owner around. All of those things being his things, his reward for getting the shy Pegasus to stand up for herself and whatnot. All those things that this friend had fiendishly ensured she was getting for free. Well, Angel was not going to let this stand. There was only one head pet in the household, and that was him.
Now, Angel Bunny.
Fluttershy said, just as she grabbed a hold of the former projectile and passed it over to its owner as a delicate vegetable.
Rainbow Dash will be staying here for the next couple of days, so I expect you to be on your best behavior, okay?
Angel Bunny did not like this, and his scowl deepened as he grabbed his lunch/weapon. Instead of leaving to eat his lunch, the small companion hopped over beside Fluttershy and looked at her for attention.
Angel Bunny, do you want to hang out with me and Rainbow Dash?
The carrot-chewing creature nodded a yes, and was then held up in a hug by the two yellow hooves.
Okay then. That's okay with you, Dash. Please be okay with it?
If Angel's Bunny current look directed at Rainbow Dash were to be translated into words, they would say, "I'm going to smother you in your sleep."
Yeah. Sure.
Oh my, I just thought of something.
Fluttershy blurted out as she placed Angel Bunny back onto the floor.
If you're gonna be staying here, I'll have to introduce you to all the animals. Some of them get very nervous around other ponies.
I guess that'll be something to do.
Rainbow Dash murmured without a drop of enthusiasm in her voice.
Great!
Fluttershy exclaimed with an enthusiasm that can only come from when animals were involved.
I'll introduce you to the animals outside first, and then as they leave when it gets dark, and I could show the animals I keep in the house first. And I'm sure they'll get on fine with you. And then...
Fluttershy, I don't suppose you, I don't know, enchanted your garden or something?
Rainbow Dash murmured such words as her rosy pink eyes took in the sight of the harmonious area of green grass, an area filled with playful and relaxed creatures of all shapes and sizes.
I don't think I have.
Fluttershy answered with an uncertainty created by the lack of understanding where such a question would come from.
Oh, and these are the badgers. Now, badgers, you remember my friend Rainbow Dash, right? Well, she'll be staying with me for a while. Are you okay with that?
Because I'm pretty sure snakes try to eat rats, not play noughts and crosses with each other.
The pegasus explained as he watched the rodent and reptile in question playing a commonplace game on a patch of dry dirt. The back garden and animal sanctuary of Fluttershy's cottage is indeed a beauty to behold, a place of serene gentleness in the latest of nights and earliest of mornings, which transforms into a world of wonders when the animals awake. Seeing the creatures of all shapes and sizes gathered together is for some ponies breathtaking. But Fluttershy was preoccupied with introducing her friend to its inhabitants when said friend was too busy noticing the absurdity of all of it for either pony to delight in what was for them a frequently seen but always remarkable place.
I'm also sure that your turtle's stalking me. And then there are the bats. The bats are really cool, by the way, but they don't sleep during the day and they come out at night. Oh well, when it's night I'm usually asleep and they don't want to wake me, so the bats usually come to see me in the day.
Fluttershy replied as some of the fruit bats in question flew down to their caretaker, offering a small spare peach to her, which was gratefully accepted.
Also, the little guy over there is a tortoise, not a turtle.
Said peach-colored peach was then passed on to the athlete, Fluttershy excusing herself as not being hungry, but also not wanting to turn down the animal friend's gift. So, Rainbow Dash snapped up the fruit from her friend's hooves and swallowed it in seconds, only briefly enjoying the sweet flavor.
I guess that makes sense.
Rainbow said, with a warmly smiling Fluttershy nodding with appreciation. The two school buddies moved on to try and spot more animals that had yet to be introduced to the Cyan Speedster, or be made aware of her current forced presence. For once, both their paces were pretty slow. However, it did not prevent them from bumping into one another. As they looked to and fro, their heads turning this way and that, skulls inevitably collided, as so lost in their task of spotting the animals they were, that they would forget one another besides each other, their heads being mere centimeters apart. But the yellow mare of the property spotted the next character to be introduced to Rainbow Dash, a seal. Said aquatic animal beamed with a jolly grin, and clapped his slippers gleefully with a typical seal sound being emitted from its throat. Rainbow Dash turned to Fluttershy and asked,
Is that a seal?
Yes?
A seal. Don't they only live in seas or oceans and such?
Yes.
Then where did this seal come from? I don't know of any saltwater areas being near Ponyville or the Everfree Forest.
Fluttershy did not say a word at first. She simply scratched at the ground with her hoof, and covered her face with her mane. When she did speak, it was with a half-hearted mutter.
I actually don't know. You seem to know a lot more about animals than I expected.
Well, you did go on and on about them back at school.
Rainbow Dash replied with a roll of her eyes, a smirk, and her thoughts looming to the past.
Besides, when I left flight school, I went to travel the world a little. Remember? I learned a few things about what animals were here and there.
Yes, I do.
Fluttershy continued to mutter and mumble for her next incoherent words beneath her mane. Angel, who had been lying cozily against Fluttershy's mane, proceeded to slightly tap against his free ride. Snapping out of her low-volume mutterings and somber secret thoughts, Fluttershy looked to the rabbit, who looked at her with a ever so slightly expression of concern in his face. So, she shot him a smile, a reassurance that she was okay, and that the rabbit would once again relax.
Come on, there's still plenty of animals to show you.
Fluttershy purred as she continued the tour of the garden. Once more did the two colorful-coated pegasi wander the garden, one half-sleeping bunny enjoying his free ride, while the other pony's eyes scoured the garden. Rainbow knew her friend had many animals, but it had been a while since she had spent time at her shy friend's house, and could tell that both the amount and variety had expanded. Before her line of sight, she could behold wasps, ghosts, archaeopteryxes, a cat, and
Hold on a second.
The two ponies had stopped abruptly as Rainbow Dash skeptically shot many looks around, where she thought she'd spotted an ancient bird long since extinct, but found no sign of it. After a rough minute, Rainbow Dash halted her search, believing to have mistakenly seen such a thing, and chose to forget about it.
And over here we have my squirrel friends. How are you today?
Fluttershy asked as Ted Roden scampered up to her and proceeded to answer her question with a few short gestures.
You want me to teach you some new dance steps? I'm sorry, but now's not really a good time.
The squirrels became downcast at this, but were not the only ones whose mood soured. Angel Bunny became irritated by how easily the dance-obsessed critters could convey their message and be understood, while he had to suffer through nonsensical interpretation after nonsensical interpretation. Fluttershy continued to watch the saddened squirrels as they departed, heads held low and dragging their little feet. The animal lover watched until their heart could take it no longer, which was all of 5 seconds.
Wait, we could go over some basics for today.
The squirrels turned around grinning ear from ear, leaping with joy from the news. Rainbow Dash, who had been silent through all of this, chose now to speak up.
Fluttershy, you and I are still stuck together. How are you?
Fluttershy turned to Rainbow Dash, grasped both forehooves with her own, and looked to her friend with the largest, most begging puppy dog eyes imaginable.
Please, Rainbow Dash, please dance with me.
It would take being some kind of heartless abomination, or blind, to resist such adorable pleading when literally face to face with it, and so Dash crumbled under the look, as most would.
Sure.
Fluttershy smiled with glee, clapping her hooves together in delight as cheers arose from the gang of furry animals. Angel was not one to cheer, but rather grumble as he hopped off of Fluttershy's back, chewing at his carrot bitterly. Fluttershy coughed for attention, and the squirrels slowly quieted down, and their gazes focused on Fluttershy placing one of her hooves around Rainbow Dash's shoulder.
Wait, we're dancing together? As in, hooves wrapped around each other dancing together?
Rainbow Dash asked with a tint of uncertainty in her voice. Fluttershy caught herself in the midst of her actions, and with a rosy red on her face explained,
Sorry, it's just with us having to be in contact all the time. I figured this would be the best way to do it. Dance.
Fair enough. I've never danced with another pony like this before.
You haven't? Should I lead then?
Yeah, I guess.
Rainbow Dash added, and with that, Fluttershy urged Rainbow to take on one of her hooves and place it onto Fluttershy's shoulder. With the two ponies set up, they began to dance. The dance was slow, and the two ponies merely trotting around in circles with her while close together, urging each other back and forth in a rhythmic pattern. This Rainbow picked up quickly, and seeming a knack for all forms of physical activity, though her unfamiliarity with a partner as soft and touching as Fluttershy led to one or two movements with too much strength and speed. Yet the two managed. Basic movements they were, but the basics were of course worth remembering, and the pleasant mood warmed Fluttershy's very soul. Even Rainbow Dash enjoyed it for a while, the slight and steady but consistent movements occupying her thoughts and attention of the wildlife around her, pleasing any need for attention she might have had. After a while, though, Rainbow Dash felt too comfortable with the pattern, and as such, decided to make good on her ability to improvise. Rainbow Dash grinned as she swayed back, gently, and then pulled herself up with a greater force than usual. This returning force caught Fluttershy off guard, the mare losing her balance as she began to fall back. Never did she hit the floor, though. The sensation of falling was put to stop, as Rainbow Dash's foreleg remained wrapped around Fluttershy's body, holding the mare up, as Rainbow Dash's own body began to support her entire weight on her hind legs. Rainbow was now leaning over Fluttershy with a grin, their muzzles but a few inches apart. The athlete was amused at the shocked face of her friend. Said friend, though, was thinking of less of the surprise, but on the closeness of the two ponies currently had, and blushed at this fact. Angel Bunny was not amused by this, in fact. Something about the closeness of the two concerned him, like that of a carrot rolling away from him into the paws of another rabbit. So when Rainbow went to lift Fluttershy back up so that they could resume their dance, both pairs of hind legs firmly on the ground, Angel decided to roll his carrot towards them. Dash went to place her tiptoeing, standing with just one front portion of her hooves on the toeless equine, hind leg back onto the grassy surface. She found her hoof not touching the fresh greens, but something else. Something that rolled out from underneath her hooves when stepped on. Her balance disrupted, Rainbow Dash found herself falling backwards and out of Fluttershy's feebler grip, landing with all fours in the air. The moment Fluttershy's legs touched down upon the ground, she called out,
Rainbow Dash, are you okay?
Yeah, I'm fine.
The down pony grumbled. briefly placing a hoof on Fluttershy in order to prevent the bracelets activating.
But...
Rainbow began, flipping off the ground and her back, and suspending herself in the air with her proud wings, shooting daggers at the rabbit who was currently wiping dust and dirt off of his carrot. With a flap of her wings, she flew right on over to the rascally rabbit.
You tricked me on purpose!
Rainbow Dash, Angel would never do such a thing.
Fluttershy began to say as she trotted over to where her pony friend and animal friends were, and resumed the contact with Dash by a hoof placed on a Cyan's shoulder.
Right, Angel?
Angel Bunny looked innocent, a hurt expression on his face as he waddled up to his owner with arms stretched open and receiving a loving and precious hug.
You must have dropped your carrot and it rolled beneath Rainbow's feet. I understand, Angel.
In the midst of the loving embrace, while the animal caretaker's pink mane fell and obscured some of her face, Angel looked over to Rainbow Dash and smiled smugly. Rainbow was about to call him out on this when Fluttershy spoke again.
I'm not mad at you, Angel Bunny, and Rainbow Dash isn't either. Right, Rainbow Dash?
Again, Rainbow was about to speak up in anger, but in a rare moment her brain spat out her actions, and that realization that Fluttershy wouldn't believe her when it came to her most precious pet made her stop. With a great pain, Rainbow Dash coughed out,
Yeah, sure. I'm not mad.
Fluttershy continued hugging her angel. Said devilish rabbit continued his smug smile, and the Cyan equine continued her angered gaze at the troublemaking rabbit. Inside the cottage, Rainbow was being shown the few sick animals that were currently residing there, and once or twice had some of the healthy rodents who called their place the abode pointed out to her. Most of the poorly birds, rodents, and even reptiles were not in the mood for company or chatting, and would either ignore the duo or weakly smile back at a response. Of the injured animals, or to be precise, an injured bird, was a single blue jay with a bandaged wing, who was active enough to hop away when the two fairly larger beings approached.
No, there's no need to worry. This is my friend Rainbow Dash, and I assure you she will not harm you. She just wants to say hello.
The animal lover softly cooed to the retreating bird, lightly tapping her closest friend afterwards.
Oh, right. Hi there.
Rainbow uttered with a wide grin and a weak wave of a hoof. The bird did not move any closer, nor did it retreat, but it sat down and appeared to breathe a sigh of relief.
Little Blue here was resting in an apple tree when Applejack accidentally bucked him out of it.
Fluttershy whispered to Rainbow Dash.
He broke his wing when he fell, and Applejack brought him here for me to treat him.
Right. So is that all of them?
Oh, yes, I keep all the sick and injured animals downstairs if I can, and so far this year, there haven't been many. The ones I do treat tend to be well enough to head home on the very next day they come to see me.
Fluttershy finished her explanation with a smile upon her face, the thought of the animals going without injury warming her heart. Fluttershy was enjoying the act of presenting her animals to her fast-paced friend, who had, as of late, not been in her company for long enough periods to show around. Finding herself comfortable with the current activity subject, Fluttershy planned to discuss her animals some more, and perhaps see if Rainbow Dash wanted one, but a sudden growl interrupted her thoughts. A nervous snicker that was accompanied with another growl tipped the yellow pony off to the fact that the now lightly tinted Rainbow Dash was hungry.
I don't suppose you mind if we had a quick snack?
Rainbow asked, her eyes focusing on the kitchen area.
Well,
Fluttershy began, tapping her chin with a hoof as she thought things through.
It's getting late. How about we start preparing for dinner? We can cook together.
The brightly feathered Pegasus proposed this idea with great enthusiasm, and urged the equally brightly coated Pegasus to follow her into the kitchen. This enthusiasm did not appear to be shared, though, as Rainbow Dash remained on the spot, fidgeting. If it weren't for their current predicament, she would have to be backed off from her friend, and looked at her with confusion, embarrassment, and horror. Finally, she asked,
You want me to cook?
Yes, it will be nice as we're stuck together. It'll make it easier, too. That is, if you want to.
Fluttershy said, her voice growing quieter as she noticed the uncertainty in her friend's face remaining.
Fluttershy?
Rainbow Dash took hold of her friend and faced her with a look of utmost seriousness.
You do remember that I'm not a very good cook.
Fluttershy stared blankly back before replying,
But that was back in flight school, and it wasn't bad. Just different.
Fluttershy, the school staff were off for weeks, and I was never allowed into the school kitchen ever again. As far as cooking goes, the best I could do is make a sandwich.
Why don't we go into a kitchen and you could show me some of your cooking? I could give you some pointers then.
Fluttershy pleaded, urging her friend to follow, to which she eventually did, worryingly.
And I'm sure it's better than you gave yourself credit for.
If the bubbling mixture could speak, its very first few words would be, "Please kill me!" The grey steaming goo could not speak though. It just remained in its bowl as it was observed by the two sets of pony eyes.
Well...
Fluttershy racked her brain for plausible compliments to bestow upon the thing.
It's... different. It's supposed to be toast.
Rainbow Dash replied, unamused at her friend's attempt at praise.
It's not that bad. It could be worse.
Fluttershy added as the toast droned.
Please, I doubt there's any pony who can cook as bad as I can.
Rainbow Dash was unaware of this, but at the exact time those words left her mouth, a white filly unicorn elsewhere in Ponyville suddenly sneezed. Fluttershy's gaze flittered back to Rainbow Dash's concoction and then to her fried toaster, which had seen better days. The idea that there was another pony out there who could cook such a dish filled her with dread. The idea of having to eat said dish was also beginning to be unappealing.
Let's see. Today's been a hectic day and cooking can take a lot out of a pony. So how about we make ourselves a nice simple salad instead?
Rainbow rolled her eyes and remarked,
You know, you could say my cooking's bad. I won't be offended.
Fluttershy's eyes bulged in shock at the possibility of offending her friend, and her own sense of well-being left as she began to stutter out a suicidal suggestion.
Oh, no. No. Your cooking is lovely, I'm sure. To prove it to you, I'll even try some of it myself.
Angel sprang into action faster than he'd ever done in his life. Then again, this was a life or death situation. He ran, leaped, and even barrel-rolled his way through the kitchen and scrambled onto the kitchen counter. He darted towards the ball of death, scooping up the fine china with his surprising strength, and then, with one smooth motion, flung it and its contents out of the nearest window. The sound of evil spirits wailing as they were released upon the world proved that this heroic feat had been accomplished.
I really like that bowl.
Rainbow Dash let out a sigh, relieved that she had avoided murdering her childhood friend. This warm feeling was replaced with a cold shiver soon after, as one rabbit sent evils and curses her way. To be fair, from the perspective of the pet, he had just seen the pegasus craft a weapon of ultimate destruction in an attempt to unleash it against its owner.
Okay then, let's put all this behind us and get started on a scrumptious salad, shall we?
Fluttershy suggested, aware of the antagonism within the room.
Angel, would you mind helping us?
The ironically named animal stood to attention and gave a salute. Rainbow, free from a malicious stare wishing things that cannot be repeated upon her, just became puzzled.
Wait, the rabbit is gonna help us?
Why, yes.
Fluttershy began to say as she popped her chef's hat onto Rainbow Dash's head, then went about popping one onto her own head, and then fetched another, much smaller, designed for Angel, and placed it upon his head.
Angel's an amazing chef, and his salads are always wonderful. In fact, I'm sure he can give you some pointers. If you want to. And if he wants to.
Rainbow looked to the smugly grinning bunny rabbit, flexing his paws with a sinister intent.
Yeah, I think I'll pass on that.
Okay.
Fluttershy said with a nod.
Are there any vegetables you don't like?
Not really. Food's food. Some just aren't as tasty as others.
Rainbow Dash replied, shrugging. Fluttershy nodded, turning first towards Angel, and then to Rainbow Dash.
Angel, could you fetch the veggies from the fridge and hoof them over to Rainbow Dash while I get out the colander?
Angel hopped on over to the pony-sized fridge, prying it apart with relative ease, and looking to the vast storage of produce. He cast an eye over his shoulder to see an already bored with waiting Rainbow Dash, and his owner shifting through the cupboards. Grabbing the first item of dinner and juggling it in his paws, a fun activity popped into his head. Fun for him, at least. The unprepared Rainbow Dash only managed to catch the slowly falling head of cabbage before it hit the floor. Or her, and considering she was a pony with hooves, this was not easily done.
Hey, give me a heads up before...
Rainbow Dash had turned to reprimand the rabbit, only to see a colorful shower of greens, reds, oranges, and yellow heading her way. Her forehooves parted, and she stood back onto her hind hooves, even though doing so cut off the connection with Fluttershy, bracing herself for the onslaught. With reflexive skill, Rainbow Dash managed to catch each and every cabbage, cucumber, tomato, lettuce, Brussels, carrot, and a pepper thrown away. The result was that nothing had fallen to the ground, but the result was also that Rainbow Dash was weighed down by a ton of vegetables, barely remaining on her hind legs. Fluttershy finished placing all of the kitchen's instruments as they were going to be used onto the counter and turned to see the walking stacking of vegetables.
Angel, Dash, we don't need quite that many. There's only 3 of us.
I know that.
Dash grumbled, but behind the heap of food in her hooves, the words emitted did not reach Fluttershy's ears. So Fluttershy resumed contact with Dash momentarily before taking what she needed from the overloaded assistant and set them aside, ready to be washed. With the lightened load, Rainbow was able to move once more, going towards the fridge and returning the unneeded produce. Of course he passed Angel along the way, and the two stuck out their tongues at one another. Returning to the counter and resuming physical contact with Fluttershy, the next 2 orders were given out.
Let's see. It'll be easy if I broach everything first and hoop it all to you and Angel to have it chopped up.
Me and the rabbit. Working together with knives.
Rainbow queried, each word uttered slowly. Fluttershy nodded, oblivious to the poor relationship between her friend and the pet, and continued to say,
Once you 2 are done cutting everything up, just place it into a salad bowl. When we're finished, we can grate some carrots and sprinkle some herbs to lay on top of the salad, and it'll be done. A nice, simple salad.
So, Fluttershy got to work, rinsing a cucumber under a tap before handing it over to Rainbow Dash. Angel Bunny, now atop the counter and standing beside the chopping board, held his paws out to be handed the cucumber. Said cucumber was then dropped onto his head. Angel pushed aside the greenery, looking up towards the pony with an expression on her face that told him,
Don't mess with me.
Angel was never one to be bossed around, though, and so stared back, sparks flying between the two. They did not know it, but the both of them shared the same thought.
It is on.
Sitting so close with another mare side by side and eating dinner together? It's almost romantic.
Fluttershy thought to herself.
Not that I want it to be that way or anything.
Within the small, colorful room with the wooden walls, flooring, and ceiling, dimly lit by the last orange lights of a declining sun, the 2 ponies and 1 rabbit sat together to enjoy a meal together. A refreshed Fluttershy enjoyed her meal, eating to the sounds of a gentle breeze and various birds' consistent but easy to the ear tweets. Rainbow Dash and Angel Bunny, bruised and battered by various vegetable-related injuries, attempted to enjoy their meal while getting in each other's way.
Hey, I was about to have that cucumber.
Rainbow Dash yelled out in protest as the agile bunny darted forth, grabbing a slice of the green vegetable, and returned to his seated position, that being between Fluttershy and Rainbow Dash. He had actually meant to position himself directly between the two, to stop their constant hoof-holding, but after being pushed away several times because his owner feared he would be hurt by the supposed magic, he settled for being close by and keeping an eye out on the Rainbow one. Rainbow muttered and cursed towards a certain pet as she reached for another serving of salad. This time, her sights were set on some chunks of carrot, more as a means to spite the spiteful rabbit than her enjoyment of the orange vegetable. Her hoof inched closer, ready to scoop up the veggie of her choosing, when once again a white speeding blur snatched up the produce. Dash glared daggers at the full-mouthed rabbit, who was still in the process of chewing up the last bit of his cucumber.
Now, Angel Bunny, you were still eating your food. You shouldn't have taken that carrot until you finished off what you had.
Fluttershy gently scolded her cunning little pet, who proceeded to look up at his owner with crocodile tears and offered up the chunk of carrot.
Oh, did you grab the carrot for me?
Receiving one solemn nod led to a smiling and apologetic Fluttershy saying,
I'm sorry for scolding you. I shouldn't have scolded you like that.
Rainbow Dash could only frown with irritation as Angel looked over to her with a cheeky grin, smirking as if victorious. As the night approached with much speed, the simple but large meal was finished off, and the cleaning of all the utensils went underway without a hitch. One problem was that was going to arise when washing up, as the sink was too small for both ponies to be before it, but this was settled when Rainbow Dash volunteered to do this herself, wanting to get the chore out of the way as soon as possible. It was now that the 2 animals began to either leave or return in order to sleep, with some strolling back into the everfree forest, others bouncing down to their burrows, or birds coming through the open window, with their sights set on the hanging birdhouses. Angel also decided to book in for the night, slumped his little body onto the settee, and dropped off to sleep in seconds. As each animal returned to their beds, Fluttershy greeted her returning companions with a glee, and after introducing Rainbow Dash in their current predicament, got to work checking that each of them were okay.
Hey, Shy, mind if I use your bathroom?
A fidgeting Dash asked, as she looked to the second floor of the house where her desired location was.
Oh, sure. It's just up the stairs, first door to your left.
Fluttershy replied, with one eye turned to her friend, the other still on the beaked creature she was conversing with. Rainbow Dash nodded before quickly zooming up the staircase to answer the call of nature. Meanwhile, Fluttershy had a different call to nature to answer, that of the animals before her.
Oh, yes, she is very fast. Oh, I know you're fast too, but I don't think you'd be able to keep up with Rainbow Dash, and it's possible you'd hurt yourself if you tried to, so please don't.
The caretaker's current conversation with a rather cocky bird was interrupted by another, different animal, tapping at her hoof.
Yes, Mr. Mouse?
Said male mouse tapped on Fluttershy's newly acquitted garment with a look of urgency, to which Fluttershy interpreted as a question of, "What is it?"
Why, this is a magical bracelet I accidentally put on today. I can't take it off, and it makes me and whoever's wearing the other bracelet unable to part for more than... oh dear.
She then squeaked as her entire body froze, every muscle going still under the mystical force, as she was then levitated gently off of the ground and flung backwards roughly. Fluttershy didn't even have a chance to begin to scream before her back collided against Rainbow Dash's, nor did she get a chance afterwards, as the magic stopped working and the two fell down against the very top of the staircase, in which they proceeded to roll down noisily. The sound of crashing awoke the lightly napping rabbit, and he quickly opened his eyes, and saw that the rainbow-maned pony was pinning his owner to the floor. Quick as a lightning bolt, the rabbit leaped on over to defend his owner from her assailant, and so kicked the attacker in the head.
Ow, you stupid rabbit!
Rainbow shot up and took a swipe at the swift angel, who ducked away and put up a paw cuff. Rainbow was going to follow this up by lunging for her prey, her patience with the brat finally run out, but halted when she remembered her much-desired activity and crossed her hind legs.
Rainbow Dash?
Fluttershy mumbled as she sat up. Fluttershy's head ached from the tumble, and her mind was unfocused, which only added to her confusion when Rainbow Dash grabbed her by both sides and blurted out,
Fluttershy, come with me to the bathroom quick. I really need to pee.
Fluttershy was taken off guard by this statement, but caught on to why such a thing was said rather quickly.
Because of the bracelets? You need me to touch you while you...
Yeah, now hurry already!
The desperate pony yelled out as she ignored the irritated rabbit behind her and proceeded to drag her mystically changed friend up to the bathroom with her. As Fluttershy was being pulled along to her bathroom, a single thought relieved the pony.
At least nothing from now on will be more awkward than this.
Then Fluttershy and Rainbow Dash were in bed together.
I don't see why you find this to be a problem. We've slept in the same bed before.
Rainbow Dash stated, as she turned to face Fluttershy, resulting in their muzzles being millimeters apart.
Yeah, but we were fillies back then.
Fluttershy noted as both her forelegs and hind legs brushed up against her counterparts beneath the covers.
And your bed was a lot larger.
What difference does that make?
I've since gone through puberty, found that I'm attracted to mares, and know that you have a nicely toned, sexy body.
Fluttershy thought.
Oh, it just does, I guess.
Rainbow raised one eye, a sign of body language that stated that the other pony was still considered weird by the beholder of said expression, but never uttered the phrase. Instead, the pony settled on the task of shifting her body into a more comfortable position, rustling the covers, and moving her legs in a way that would not inconvenience the other occupier of the bed. She turned her head away from her friend, tugging on the covers, and then rolled around to face her friend once more, as she struggled to decide which side to lie on. A question arose in the prismatic maned pony's head, so she looked up to her friend, her magenta eyes looking directly into a pair of teal ones. The question halted in her still tongue, as Rainbow Dash stared curiously at the shining face, whose head tried to pull back, but seemed unable to, as if entranced to stay still, and stare back with the softest of expressions. Neither knew why. Perhaps the relaxed atmosphere and the warming covers reminded them of their previous sleepovers as fillies, but a sincere smile grew on both ponies' faces. Then a bunny dropped down onto the pillow the two equines' heads were resting on, and startled both of them.
Oh, Angel Bunny, you scared me.
Fluttershy addressed her bunny as she poked her head out from underneath the covers.
Do you want to sleep with me tonight? And Rainbow Dash?
Angel did not answer with any form of nod for confirmation. He only put his small arms around Fluttershy as best as he could, and snuggled up to his owner. Fluttershy released a small "ah" sound at this show of affection, before returning to snuggle with a gentle fuzzing. All receiving such attention, though the rabbit made sure to turn around for a moment, so he was facing the other mare in the bed, glancing at her, placed a paw to his eyes, and then set paw threateningly at Dash. By this, Angel meant to say, "I've got my eye on you."
Good night, Angel Bunny. Good night, Rainbow Dash.
Fluttershy said, with a rarely heard chirpiness in her voice, as she snuggled up to both her bunny and the mattress.
Yeah. Good night.
Rainbow Dash replied, unsure of what to make of the rabbit's threat. That night, Fluttershy slept peacefully, while Rainbow Dash remained awake as a guardian angel of sorts stared at her the entire night, ensuring his owner's safety. The end.